Today, I'm diving back into your controversial bourbon opinions with part 5. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Brad's Bourbon Reviews. I'm Brad, and today I made a video and posted it over on TikTok asking about your controversial bourbon opinions, and you guys delivered yet again. A few things before we get into this. If I make fun of you, I'm just joking. You can drink anything, however you like it. It's all just fun, and I'm being silly if I make fun of you. So don't take it personally. I'm seriously just joking. But enough chatting. Let's get into these. First up is friend of the show, Mike from Cinna Bourbon. He says, certain content creators are really industry plants, and I know who they are. I promise you it's not me. We actually talked about this in person, and the person that you think it is, I agree with you. So that's all I'm going to say. Let's move on to the next one. This comes from Colorado Whiskey Girl. She says, I don't think Travelers is total trash, and I think Law's Whiskey is terrible. I've never had Law's Whiskey. I don't think Traveler is total trash. I think people just were expecting more out of it because it's Buffalo Trace. Now, I don't think it's like an objectively good bourbon, but or whiskey, it's not even bourbon. I think that it's just one of those things where people had high hopes up to here and some disappointment when they realized that like it was actually like down here. But also, I think one thing that shot Buffalo Trace in the foot was not disclosing what was in Traveler. I think that really bothered a lot of people, myself included. I would agree. I say I agree, but I didn't love. I liked it okay. When I did my review, I thought it was fine. I don't think it was like anything amazing. But then I used it as a mixer after that. And I don't think it was like in cocktails. I think I just like mixed it with Coke to get rid of them because I had a few of them that I had bought. Because a friend of mine was like, this is going to be the next big thing. And I bought it and it was not. But good comment. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Justin Zebrick. He says, Willet is overpriced and very under-delivering. I have to agree with you on that. I am not the biggest fan of Willet. I think some of their stuff is okay. Like the Willet Purple Top Wheated Bourbon is good. Is it $350 retail good? Absolutely not. Like it's not even close to like that quality for the money. So I do agree with that. I have had a few things from Willet that I do like, but if I'm being honest, they are just kind of few and far between. And yeah, they're kind of expensive. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Shep at Spotters_Speakeasy. It says, if you complain about secondary pricing, but you're too lazy to hunt and make relationships to help your case, shut the fuck up and pay it. He said STFU. I filled in the gaps. I actually kind of agree with this because I know I have people in my life who complain about stuff and it's like, well, dude, I don't see you at drops. I don't see you do anything. Like, yeah, we're putting the work in to get these bottles. You do have to build relationships and it doesn't just mean with store owners. Like you have to have friends that, maybe you have a friend who's a friend of a store owner and then you kind of go that way. When people say make relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean with store owners. You have to kind of have a little mini Orlando bourbon gang. Shout out to the fellas like we do, and we help each other out, and I think it's a good thing. And I kind of agree, but I also understand not wanting to spend the money on crazy money on bottles. I get that too. It's what it is. It's the game. Like you can be mad about it, and or you can show up to drops. It's one of those things that's like it's not any one person's fault. It's just kind of how it is. So you have to play the game or don't pick up a controller. Moving on to the next one. This comes from friend of the show, Sullivan Speakeasy. He said, this apparently is controversial to some, but I do not get the Good Times hype at all. Overpriced Finish MGP. I have not had it. I cannot comment. But I do know people tend to like those. As a general statement, I'm not a huge fan of finishing whiskey in general. I think that it is a lot of times like not great whiskey that is kind of, finished to change it. And, that's not always true, obviously. For example, I'm a oddly, for no apparent reason, I'm a pretty big fan of the Penelope Rosé cask finish. Don't know why. I just really like it. And I think it's really good. So I haven't tried it yet, and I will probably not based on your review, because I feel like we have similar palates. Moving on to the next one. This next one's hilarious. This is from Bottom Shelf King. Bourbon reviews are a trend that need to go away sooner than later. Is that just because no one watches your videos? Moving on to the next one. This comes from Moose. All Bookers, normal box are overpriced and mid. I would actually say, with exception of like 5 or 10 Bookers, they are all overpriced and mid. There's very few that I think actually stand out and are exceptional. One of them is Kentucky Tea. I think that one's pretty solid. The Reserve, the Gold, whatever special one that was last year was phenomenal. I've had a few of those like super special releases that were good, but to me, like Little Book Chapter 1, the Infinite Chapter 1 was like very mediocre. It was like just an okay bottle and it was like twice the price. price of a regular Booker. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I would tend to agree with you. Moving on to the next one. This one comes from David Osley. Sorry, 94 if I said your name wrong. Brad, third time here, and I'll die on this hill. Garrison Brothers tastes like rubber cement that was found in the garbage months after completing your 4th grade science fair project. I like Garrison Brothers. I haven't talked about them much on this channel, and that's going to change. A little story I have about Garrison Brothers. I went to a whiskey festival in Charlotte a few years ago. It was the first time I'd ever been like invited as media to do something bourbon related. I kept running into whiskeys that I just didn't like, and I gravitated towards Garrison, and that was like the only Garrison small batch was like the only thing I ended up drinking at this whiskey festival after a certain period of time. So I disagree. I actually like Garrison Brothers quite a bit. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Hunter Hicks. He says, Elmer T should not have the secondary market value that it has. I agree 100%. I like Elmer, but it's not something that I'm going to go out of my way for. Like I wouldn't wait in line for, even at MSRP. I used to get them for like $40-$50. I think they're just they're fine. Like they're good. They're not bad. They are bad if you pay $500-$600 for it. But, I think the most I would pay for an Elmer would probably like $120, $150. But, it's one of those things where it's like, what's your time worth? Is it worth it to you to just pay that? It's like the comment we had before. Is it worth it for you to pay that secondary and just not have to deal with all that? Because unfortunately, that's the reality for most people. And it's just one of those things where it's like, do you want to pay the secondary value for it, or do you want to just get it at a markup and just say you have it? I understand both like 100%, but it should not be that valuable for sure. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Trademark TM. How'd you get that name? Finished bourbon shouldn't be called bourbon, and 99% of it sucks. Finished bourbon should be called bourbon because it follows all the legal qualifications of bourbon, and then it is finished in a cask. I think that's why they have that distinction, that it is a finished bourbon. Now, if you took away the finished and just called it bourbon, I would 100% agree with you, because I think that you could really kind of sneak some stuff in there, which is one of the reasons why I like bourbon so much, is how regulated it is and how strict they are on what you can say and what you can't say. My goal for bourbon at some point is to have small batch have a legal definition behind it, because you could say small batch and it could be 40,000 barrels. It could be 100,000 barrels. It could be 4 billion barrels, and you could still call it small batch. I think that's one of those things for me that needs to have a strict definition to it. But 99% of it sucks. I wouldn't say it's that high for me personally. I think I would say honestly it's like 50-50. I really like some stuff. I really don't like some stuff. I think the more you get into bourbons and the more you like want some nuance and some subtlety change from specific distilleries, is when the finishing stuff kind of becomes appealing. Whether you like it or not is a whole nother conversation. But like one of the things I love is the Jack Daniel's Tennessee Taster Series, and I have a bunch of them, and I love all of them, but there are some that are objectively bad. Like the one finished in tequila barrels is just absolutely bad. It's terrible. But I love it because I think it's cool that these distilleries are kind of doing that stuff and doing really strange finishings, and I think it's cool. But I get it. I totally get it. Moving on to the next one. This one comes from Big Jav 92. He says, people who hate on more expensive bottles because they can't afford them, holy shit, shouldn't be in the whiskey community. Oh. That's fucked up. How do I handle this comment? I don't think they should be allowed in the whiskey community. But I do think, like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I don't get, like, getting upset that Buffalo Trace is making an Eagle Rare 25. Like, I'll never buy that bottle. I do think it is weird that people get, like, mad about it. Like, these companies owe you things. Like, they don't owe you anything. They're a company. Their job is to make money. They have clientele that can spend that money. That's why those bottles are all gone. I don't know, man. I think it's weird to shit on people for what they can and can't afford, but like I also think that it is interesting that people care that much. I mean, like, it's not like they're if distilleries were going, we're not going to be selling Wild Turkey 101 anymore, we're only selling $25,000 bottles, then I think you have a reason to get upset. But if they're still producing what they're producing when they also just have these like special releases, I think that is completely fair and justified, because there are people who can afford those. And luckily, I'm friends with a few of them, and I get to try really cool shit. Moving on to the next one. Max Hadley says, Green River Foolproof is underpriced. Shh, don't tell them that. They'll raise the prices. Shut up. Green River Foolproof is fantastic, and it is perfectly priced. Moving on to the next one. This is from DRWYNN. I'm going to call you Dr. Win. I don't know if that's what you go by, or Dwin. That's what Dwin. I don't know. Baker's 7 is awful. I don't think it's awful. I'm just not a fan. You might just not be a fan of Jim Beam. I would ask you, have you tried any of the other Jim Beam stuff? Did you like it or hate it? Well, Baker's 7 is a single barrel, so it could just be like barrel variation that you're experiencing that you think really sucks. Have you tried more than one of them from a different, like have you tried different barrels of it? It also could just be that Jim Beam is not for you. And I think that's totally fair. Moving on to the next one. PJ Jesse says, Basil Hayden varieties got a bag rap, but I think they're great. I have not had a Basil Hayden thing that I enjoyed other than the Basil Hayden toasted, but to be fair, I drank that way before I was like into whiskey like I am now. I'm not a big Basil Hayden fan, but if you like it, man, that's awesome. I'm glad you found something you like. Moving on to the next one. This is Adventures of Misty and Mike. Buffalo Trace and Sazerac Rye are terrible. Gave them both away. That's crazy to me. This is a terrible take. Buffalo Trace for $25 is great. Now, if you spent $50-$60 or God forbid $100 on Buffalo Trace, like some people were buying back in the day, yeah, it's not good for that price. But both of them are just awesome. Like the Sazerac Rye is a great. I use it for mixing for the most part, for like old fashions and stuff. But Buffalo Trace by itself is great. I did have one bottle of Buffalo Trace one time that was so bitter that I couldn't finish it, and I poured it out. Luckily, I had Buffalo Trace before. I knew something was wrong. I don't know if it was cork rot. I don't know what it was, but it was awful. Like, it was really bad. So maybe it was just a weird bottling issue or something. I don't know, but that's a weird take. Whatever, dude. You do you. Find something you like. If you like it, awesome. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Josh Hodges. Old Bardstown is good. Do you mean Old Bardstown, like the brand Old Bardstown? I haven't had. I think it's it's like from Willet, isn't it? I have not ever tried this, but I'm going to now based off your recommendation. Moving on to the next one. This comes from Sean Satchwell. Says Stagg Jr. would not be so sought after if it wasn't in such a cool bottle with a cool name on it. Well, the bottle design, I mean, it is a cool design, I guess, but it's kind of a simple whiskey bottle. I mean, there's other bottles that use the Stagg bottle. Like this. This is from another distillery called Conviction, Southern Grace Distillery. They're actually the distillery that I'll be doing my first barrel pick on March 22nd at. Shameless plug, and I don't care. But they use the same bottle. No, I really don't think it's that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these bourbon people who, like the Fred Minnicks of the world who are like, judging spirits competitions and things, they get their stuff blind. And these experts say it's really good. That's how brands blow up. Look at Harry McKenna a few years ago now. But I don't agree with that. And I think a lot of this like Buffalo Trace is overhyped is just because the bottles are expensive. But that's not Buffalo Trace's fault. Buffalo Trace makes great bourbon. I think to pretend otherwise is kind of crazy. And Stagg, like regular BTAC Stagg, I mean, like it's some of the best bourbon ever made. I don't know what to tell you there. If you don't like it, if you don't like Stagg, I just don't know what to tell you. Moving on to the last one here. This comes from Corey, and they say, Whistle Pig is an overpriced gimmick brand. Age isn't everything either. I completely agree. I've never had anything from Whistle Pig that I was like, I need one of these. Everything I've ever had from Whistle Pig has just been fine. I think Whistle Pig is overrated. Like, I say overrated, but like, I don't know anyone who's a Whistle Pig fan. You know what I mean? Like, I know people who have like a few bottles from them, but like, I don't know anyone who's like, I love Whistle Pig. It's my thing. So maybe it's not overrated. It's just like casual people maybe buy it because they see, a really high age stated whiskey and they're like, that's dope, I want that. Not knowing what it is, maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but some of their prices are just so ridiculous, and I don't understand it. But that's the video. Part 6 will be coming out because I still have plenty of comments to get to, and if you would like to add your controversial opinion to the next video, comment down below. While you're at it, leave a like and subscribe. I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, cheers. And be kind to everybody in the comments. This is just jokes. A big thank you to all the Patreon supporters you see on screen right now.